editor of the EdisonReport, and we're here at our 4th annual lighting discussion hosted by the NLB Board of Directors. We are at the IBEW International Office in Washington, D.C., and they're gracious enough to allow us to use their studio. I'm joined by Marty Riesberg and Jim Yorgey. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Our subject today is digital addressable lighting. And Jim, let me start with you. What are some of the primary advantages of digital addressable lighting?
Yeah, addressable lighting, as its name applies, means I can take every lighting element, every light fixture, and talk to it individually. And the conversation can be not just telling it what to do, what light levels to go to, whether it can be on or off, but I can ask it questions. I can say, you know, how much power are you using? What's the status of the lamp? Is the lamp good? Is the light engine, the LED light engine, okay? Or is the ballast or driver okay? So it gives me a lot of control capability I didn't have before. It gives you the flexibility also of being able to program what that light fixture is in terms of what other fixtures it's working with. So I can initially tell it what zone of lighting it's on and change that at any time. Additionally, the wiring to those fixtures is much simpler, and we can certainly address that. But that's really the big advantage, that flexibility going forward.
Okay.
The wiring of these systems, as Jim points out, is very similar to other systems, like a fire alarm system in a building. These devices in a fire alarm system are all individually zoned and individually addressed, so that when there is a fire or something going on in the building, you know exactly where that's at. The lighting systems allow for that capability now as well when they are digitally addressable.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Typically, if there is a school being constructed, many times an engineer will go out to do the commissioning. Do you have that with the fire alarms?
There's some of, I'm sorry, there's some of both actually. You know, in some cases manufacturers want to come out and do that. In other cases, with the proper amount of training that we provide members, there's opportunities that electrical contractors and the employees that work for them can do that as a complete service. It's not just a installation, it's the full service and the full commissioning of the system, really.
Yeah, commissioning's an important element because it's a digitally addressable system. I have to address the system, I have to program it, and it's something it needs the training and capability to do that addressing. As the systems which Dolly, D-A-L-I, is the industry generic term for this type of system. As the Dolly systems have evolved, the manufacturers have developed methods of making it so that an electrician can provide that kind of commissioning service or startup to make the system work initially, because they need to be providing that information to actually what is now common on a building today, a commissioning agent who's looking for how the system has been programmed, and more and more today the contractors can provide that. So it is becoming a more commonplace system today.
Okay, so let's say we've got a new warehouse, 100 high bays. It's relatively simple, it's very uniform. A contractor with training could do that commission himself, correct?
Right, yeah, certainly. You want to
Absolutely, the contractors with the training and with the, you know, at the generic level, just with Dolly and also at manufacturers levels, there's additional pieces and parts to do that, but having the training and the base knowledge of how these systems work and how they integrate allows for the commissioning that Jim's talking about, and also allows for the continual commissioning, because many times these buildings are not just started up once, they're refitted, they're commissioned again, the space is used for different purposes. And again, these sets of trainings allow for people to be able to really work in that building over its complete life cycle.
Jim, Dolly has really taken off so much faster in Europe than it has here in the U.S. or really North America. Why is that?
Yeah, I think that's a good point that they certainly have adopted it mostly wholesale, and I think the manufacturers in Europe really developed the standard initially, so they're behind it. The large lighting manufacturers have worked together as a community to progress the Dolly products over there. And I think we'll see that in this country too, as the industry moves more into it and more people become comfortable with it. Because besides the electrical contractor, we have to get the electrical engineers familiar with it, because the design is different, designing a Dolly-based system. And of course, the lighting designers have to understand it as well. And I think as that happens, it will become more of a standard in this country. One of the things that would be great to happen, though, is third-party certification. Because right now, although there's standards for these products, a manufacturer doesn't necessarily have to conform to all the elements of that standard. And that's why if you go to, for instance, the Wi-Fi routers, there is third-party certification for those things. So every Wi-Fi router, whenever you go in a building and you connect to Wi-Fi, you know it's going to work. We need the same kind of certification like that for Dolly systems.
To the European thing, could it be their higher energy rates also helped drive it faster?
I think that's an excellent point, that certainly they have the desire when I do go to a digital addressable system, I now have that ability to understand the energy picture in the building and then tune my building appropriately to optimize that energy use.
So we've talked about the issue with commissioning, and it's getting a lot better, it sounds like. What are some of the other issues with Dolly?
I think the understanding its value is one of the things that education needs to provide that. So that's certainly it. And the fact that I really do need a higher level person to be involved with, not just on the installation. We can train contractors to program initially, but to Marty's earlier point, it's the ongoing operation of that building. Understanding that, to change a driver or a ballast in a fixture, I can't just take the old one out and put the new one in necessarily. I have to understand, will that reprogram itself, or do I need to reprogram that? So the facilities managers need a new level of understanding as well.
I think the facilities managers, along with building owners, if building owners have the understanding that it's not a one-time installation cost, but more of an ROI over the life of the building, that's a conversation and an education that needs to happen for these systems to make sense, because there's no doubt without it, it may be cheaper, but over the life cycle, they're probably much, much higher if you don't do it.
And I can just imagine, to your point, a driver does go bad, the contractor is going to throw whatever driver he has or that he can get up there, and then now you've got an error.
Right, which is another interesting point. It takes us to where we're at with UL requirements for LED lighting. When I have a driver go bad in an LED fixture, it has to be replaced with the same manufacturer model number. I can't put in somebody else's driver. I don't know that facilities manager in a building understands that's what he needs to do. So the ability to get the right driver in the first place, he has to know to go to a distributor or to the original contractor and get the correct driver.
What do you see as the future of Dolly in the U.S.?
I think I might be somewhat biased in this opinion, but I think it will be adopted. And again, if we do get into a certification of products, and the Dolly standard isn't static, it is changing, it is being expanded to include the controls as well as part of the standard. And things like emergency lighting and color tuning lighting are now all part of the Dolly standard going forward. So we'll see it encompass more the overall lighting products that we have today. So I think as time goes on, it certainly has a bright future.
Bright future for new construction, but do you see a retrofit opportunity? For example, today, many buildings are going in with LED primarily that may not be dimmable or controllable. Do you see contractors going in, changing out the drivers, putting in a Dolly system?
I think there's certainly a lot of opportunity to do that, and it's also going to be driven by energy standards and outside entities, whether it's in California, maybe being Title 24, or the ASHRAE standards throughout the industry that are really going to drive some of these things. not only on the standards, but then on the ROI and the impacts that they can have over that lifetime of a building.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I think, you know, 80% of the buildings that are going to be standing in 2030 are standing today. So certainly renovating buildings is an important aspect of what we're going to do with lighting. And certainly we've seen just in the last couple of years the paradigm shift to the LEDs has just occurred so quickly, even in retrofit situations. And you know, there's probably room for maybe a wireless Dolly kind of system that makes it easier to replace fixtures without having to run wires between them. And you know, we're seeing certainly the fluorescence being now changed out with LEDs, and that's when you want to add the control element, is when you're upgrading the fixtures.
Right, but for those people that are putting in new fixtures that do not upgrade today, there's a potential for that future sale down the road, correct?
Well, it's a harder sale down the road to the ROI point that, you know, if I put the control element in now, it doesn't cost me as much as trying to retrofit that later.
Good point. Now, DLC is getting involved in controls a little bit. Have you seen this, and what's your opinion of that?
Well, DLC is a metric certainly utilities are looking at, and we need some metrics and we need some certification. So certainly organizations like that help us identify what are good products to install is a good thing. So the more we can go, that maybe they should be the third-party certifier for Dolly products. It's something that utilities need, you know, something to look at to say that's a good thing, because there's a lot of LED products out there, a lot of fluorescent products. It's certainly still, and it's knowing that I'm getting a product at the manufacturer is going to be there long term, and that it's you know, the product meets a certain standard level.
Sure. Marty, any closing comments?
I'd say that the conversation about Dolly is really about education and training. You know, whether it's for the contractors installing them, the electrical workers working for them, or the building owners or the engineers specifying them. I think a conversation about Dolly needs to be had in order for it to really move forward.
Well, gentlemen, thank you.
Thanks for
I
having us.
appreciate the time and the discussions.